Hey guys, today I wanted to go ahead and introduce you to, and if you don't already know, some of you are probably already on top of this and have been doing it for like 5 years now, but some sprint force velocity profiling information. So I'm going to give you a little bit of info here, and then I recorded a demo for a class of mine, and I'm going to merge those two together so then you can get walk through step by step to see how you can do this and kind of demystify it. So many times with any new information, it seems like drinking from a fire hose until you kind of get walked through. So this is a great place to start. JB Morin has done a tremendous job of giving practitioners things that are easy to work with and that they can get a lot of information from with a lot of his research. And I love that about Dr. Morin. He is no longer here. I believe trying to remember where he just went to, maybe University of Nice. Unfortunately, right now I'm having a brain fart and I can't remember. I wanted to share this page with you specifically because, hey, look at this. Download the spreadsheet here. So this will actually take you to the spreadsheet that I use in the video. And he also gives this 10-minute video tutorial about, hey, this is how you put it in, and I walk you through some of that too. But he'll tell you tell you what is this variable, what is that variable. I could tell you, but you know what? That guy's the master. Why would I even think twice that I might be able to explain something as good as he can when he's the freaking man? Here is the link to that page. And that's giving the tutorial what it means. So how do they do it, man? Whenever you get down to it, it's a lot of fancy math. And from personal communications, sitting down to dinner with Dr. Morin, long story short, it's a lot of fancy math. Pierre Samozino was really, really good at that. And he knew how to just take a few things and model it. This gives the greatest ability to see what areas you need to improve upon in sprinting. I mean, so often we just look at a couple of sprint times. We're like, oh, that's good, that's bad. But is it? Is it really? And also, using this method can also give you some more insight into the changes that occur as an athlete changes weight. In college football, it's not uncommon for somebody to come in and put on 20, 30, 40 pounds over the course of their 4 or 5 year career. And obviously, if you probably can't go pick up a 45-pound plate, strap it to your back, and run just as fast, right? Is that facetious? Absolutely, yes. Of course, muscle has contractile properties, but even having to carry that additional mass will most likely decrease your strength to mass ratio and possibly slow you down. So this is a way to look and see, are these changes, what's occurring? Are you slower? Well, yes, no, whatever. If you maintain the same speed while you put on 25 pounds, your force and your power are much higher. So it's a great way to do that. With the transfer, man, here's the deal that I want you to stop and think for a second. All too often, people give these single training programs. And you see some people are going to have a positive adaptation, some will have a negative adaptation. What do I mean by that is that some got faster, some didn't have any change, and some actually got slower. If you train by bucketing, at least bucketing. What do I mean by bucketing? I mean that you are taking certain individuals that have the same qualities, they need the same thing, and let's just put them into this grouped program over here. So it's not that you are individualizing everything, you're just grouping up what people need and giving them the same program. So the people that need force get force, the people that need velocity get velocity, the people that need both get both. It's pretty simple. Now, I wanted to go over this paper just for a second because basically that targeted training gets targeted results. Now, here's the paper. The optimized training for jumping performance using the force velocity imbalance, individual adaptation kinetics. And Pedro Jimenez Reyes is the lead author here with Pierre Samozino and JB Morin following in. Now, jumping into the article, what they did was, long story short, that they created force velocity profiles. They saw which one people were deficient in, and then they went ahead and they trained them for that. Now, these two plots are called spaghetti plots. They're called spaghetti plots because they have everybody's information on it. Now, with this program, we see that there's some different number of weeks to optimal profile. What does that mean? Well, they all trained until they got to optimal. For some people, with the neural adaptations, it seemed to be a lot quicker. For the people that needed force, it seemed to take a little, take a while longer. The black ones are high force. The light ones are low force. The light dashed are low velocity deficits, and the dark dashed are high velocity deficits. So you can see basically the darker ones take longer, the lighter ones take less time. Force seems to take longer than velocity. Now, you can really see the difference whenever we look at B. Now, this one looks a little funny, right? This top one's all slanting down, the bottom one's all slanting up, but the top one, they're all slanting up. What's going on here? Well, 100 is considered optimal, right? The optimal percentage for the force velocity profile, the optimal slope. So what we're seeing is that the people who were more velocity dominant, they balanced out their force, and the people that were more force dominant balanced out their velocity. Everybody reached the same improvement. It just took longer for some than others. Now, if you compared this to giving them all the one program, well, some people would move up and some people would move down and some people would stay the same. Whenever we had this targeted training, whenever they had this targeted training, everybody improved. There were no non-responders, which is vital for improving athleticism. If you knew that your team would have a 100% rate of improvement, meaning that everybody on the team would improve, of course you would give them that type of program. For some, it's a pipe dream. But if we test and we go deeper with the data that we take whenever we test, we can find this out. And I think it's super cool. This next paper, it actually looks at the jump height, right? It's like, well, we're doing sprints. How come you're showing us jump height? Dude, it's just a good paper, right? But anyways, so they went from pre to their optimize, and they had a period of detraining, and we noticed that, hey, man, these increases, they stayed around, which to me was pretty cool. And then this is the same concept, but looking at going towards optimal instead of looking at, and the percentage from optimal instead of looking at the jump height. That's all. Okay. Now, we're going to go over a lot of information in this tutorial as well, a lot in a brief amount of time, in 10 minutes. If you like this sort of information, come join us at the U. We'd love to have you. We have undergraduate exercise physiology, undergraduate program, and applied physiology. In both of them, definitely the master's program can have a more of a strength conditioning focus. We have online coaches education courses as well. I've got the 8-week course that is up live for the first time. With this 8-week course, I'm going to be honest with you, this is more for the beginner. If you are somebody who is looking just for, to fill in the gaps of your information, it's probably not the one for you. If you've been in the field for a few years, you're probably pretty solid in everything. Give it a look at the topics, though, if you want, and just see. And soon we're going to have different special topics courses where we'll offer the ability to pick and choose. The 8-week course, it's ran like a college course, right? So we're going to have discussion boards and things each week. I'm working on figuring out how to give the best feedback for these. Those who are in it right now don't realize, but I'm going to be recording videos to go over your little assignments with you, to walk you through it. I find that that's better than just writing some notes. So those are run one each semester, basically. One fall semester, one spring semester, and we're going to attempt to do one in the summer. See how that goes. And then the special topics, man. What do I mean by special topics? Well, we'll have some stuff on the ACL, jumping, some VBT, APRE, force plates. We're we're going to be bringing in some people too to have them talk about their own little special areas. So just trying to push the field. I don't want to be sitting here in 20 years and we talk about the same things, but with just a different name or a little different twist on it. Let's push the field forward. Okay, guys. Please, I hope you enjoy this tutorial that's coming up. And if you like it, comment, like, share, tell your friends, tell your dog, tell your neighbor's dog, tell whoever. And let's just get the good word out there for a lot more good education. All right, guys. Something I wanted to illustrate to you is that it doesn't take a lot of money to be able to do some fantastic things and get some great information and more for your program with sports science, essentially. So what we've done is we had some timing gates, and I set them out for a team. I'm going to leave the name of that team alone right now. And I got splits at 5 meters, 10 meters, 15 meters, 20 meters, and 3/4 court. Well, so I guess 3/4 court sprint, that just sells that out. I'm going to leave alone actually what specific team it was, though. But we know that it is sport of basketball, so 3/4 court sprint is big for them. I took their weight from the force plates that I've got some cheap Pasco force plates that I'm using some software to be able to pull stuff from them really easily on counter movement jumps, the height from the roster. I'm going to need to, so what I'm going to do today and walk you through is how to use a spreadsheet that J.B. Morin has put out. He's put out some amazing things for practitioners. And that's one of the things I really like about J.B. and his work is that it's got a high amount of Monday morning value. Some people say, oh, it's not new, this isn't new, this has been around since the 60s with force velocity profiling and freaking Kaneko in the 80s and things like that. Well, this is true, but now practitioners actually have access to this sort of equipment because of the decreasing in cost. So we're going to do that. One of the first things that we're going to have to do, of course, is get height into metric to use JB's spreadsheet. And how are we going to do that? Well, that's inches over there, so we're just going to equals B2 times 2.54. And then we will just click and drag that sucker on down. And then let's see, actually, I'm going to open up the spreadsheet from somebody from a different team. And we're going to look here, and it needs to be in meters so that we can do this one of two ways. We can either go here and go times 0.01. Oops, not what I wanted. Times 0.01. There we go. Let's click and drag that on down. So now we have our height, we have our weight, we have our split times. What we can do then is come over with that information into the spreadsheet by J.B. Morin. Now he has put a fantastic tutorial down about how to use the data solver and things like that. Which I don't have data solver capable for this computer because it's super old. But we'll see what we get whenever I run this data here and then just realize, and it'll give you something. Okay, so this person's stature is 1.9. Kilo is 102.5. So let's change this. We've got the temperature and the barometric pressure that are listed out here. And these are for the calculation of wind resistance. So we're trying to look at the effect of friction. So that's why it's important to do those. I'm pretty sure that this is what ours was here. Now, if I go ahead and if you'll notice right here, instead of 25 meters, I ended it at 22.86. And since it's looking at the differences from D6 to B6 and squared difference, that's why you can see that over here. Now it's time to go in and throw in our times. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is just click and drag it over, click and drag it over, and I see that my first one is 1.24. My second time is 2.09. Third time is 2.9. 20 meter is 3.62. 3/4 court time is 4.07. Okay. Now, what it has done from here then, it has used these times, stature, mass, temperature, and pressure, to calculate, basically, think about it like an instantaneous velocity. I know that velocity is time and distance. So if I've got time and I've got distance, then I know what my velocity is, and it models all the in-between times. You can see that we've got horizontal air force, we have air friction, and that's what it was used, like I had mentioned earlier about the temperature and the pressure. We see the horizontal force, horizontal power, horizontal net, then we see the vertical force, and we see the ratio of the force percentages. But then we look over here and we see, do these fit close to the line on this position time graph? And it does. So then there was no need for the data solver. The data solver would be if the points were all off of the line. Then I look over to the right and I see what my force, velocity, and power look like. What is my relationship between the two? The force and velocity should be a straight line. Power should be a parabola. Then I'm going to look at the other two graphs. I'm going to look at the velocity and time, ratio of force and velocity, and horizontal force. Now, the horizontal power as well. So these graphs give you a lot of information, a lot of nice visualized data. But if you look over here, you get these numbers, right? So what you can do is just put these in another Excel spreadsheet, and then go ahead and be able to run and analyze and look at the differences among the people. Okay, I'm going to pause this for 1 second. Okay, through the magic of television, I've gone through now and I have done the force velocity profile for everybody, and we've thrown them into a spreadsheet. So now whenever you've got this, there's a few things you can do. One, of course, you've got a timestamp for your individual athlete and knowing how they are responding to training. So you could compare, your post to your pre and see, what sort of improvements, what sort of changes, I should say, what sort of changes occurred as a result of training. Sometimes you would actually expect an individual to get slower. Sometimes you would expect an individual to get faster. Some things that you could also do is to determine what is good. Because for every team, every team and style of play, it's going to require a little bit different style of athlete. And every sport is going to require a different athlete. And this is one of the things that I got wrong earlier in my career. I was expecting there to be one optimal, one ideal, one good, if you will. But as I've learned, over time, that it all depends. Even on the best made prediction models for sport, a lot of times the R squared might only be 0.3, 0.4. Why? Well, because there's so many skills that are involved with different team sports. It's not like it's track where you run fast and lean left, and it's extremely easy then to find the difference between the difference between somebody who's good and who's not. With team sport, there's a whole other cognitive component to it beyond just the physical. But let's say we could do something like playing time. This would be something that I often will examine, and we'll also break it down by position. So we would know that, let's just call this person let's call these guys guards. These people forwards. Sure, why not? And we'll call these two centers. Okay. And then we would look, put in the playing times. So we'd say 1 is a starter, and 0 is a non-starter, right? That's 1, 2, 3, And I've got, let's give this person, matter of fact, let's give it to this person. And that's we'll call them our center. And that's 5. And then we could just simply, run the differences through ANOVAs. You can even do ANOVAs in Excel, but there's other free statistical softwares out there like Jamovi and JASP that are fantastic in my opinion. They've got a low entry level, and what I mean by that is they're all the push button. So if you know what you're wanting to run, it's pretty easy to run. You don't have to know how to write syntax or code to be able to analyze that data. And then so from here we could see, hey, what do we want these guys to look like? Hey, what are they deficient in? Oh, well, we see that this person is great on their velocity. They're low on their force. Well, they need to work on strength. They've got a low slope too. So, hey, let's get it done. They've got a high slope, which is showing that they're going towards max speed, and they've got the highest max speed on the team. But what about maybe, let's say it's somebody right here, the 6.7 max speed. Let's go ahead and dismiss that here. And now everybody knows I'm on Pat Ivy's mailing list. Long story short, we see what they're deficient in and what do we need to make improvements on. Is it force? Is it velocity? Do they need to do resisted stuff? Well, if their force is low, they probably do. So for this individual, probably strength training. Let's call them a freshman. Simply getting stronger will improve that. Maybe the sled running. Maybe this person is a junior and they're low. Well, resisted sleds. Well, what about the velocity aspect of it? Well, if they're low there, we could look to do some of the assisted sprint measures. Then, like I'd also mentioned, do we need to do absolute strength, or do we need to look at things like speed strength, trying to work that velocity into the spectrum? Those are all different things that you've got to figure out and know for yourself. But here's what's cool, is that I can get all of this information from timing gates. Also, I can get that information too with, I believe there's something called a My Sprint app. Now, I've never used it. Quite frankly, I've got the timing gate, so I'm not going to set out and try and pick when this individual crossed this line. I'm not going to spend that amount of time. Another thing that you can do for the spreadsheet that I had shown you, something that's super cool here, is that if you've got speed time curves, so what you could do is use a radar gun or a laser gun, and then all velocity values measured before the actual sprint start and the maximal velocity plateau have to be deleted. So you've got to delete whenever you've plateaued. So now, and delete before you start. You copy and you paste all the data in to the time and the radar speed. It models everything, and it will do the same thing for you. Okay, so it's pretty cool, right? So here's just something that's free to do, free to use. JB also has got the same concept for loaded jumps. You'll go down, you'll pause. You need to pause for 3 or 4 seconds so that you eliminate the stretch shortening cycle and explode from there. Okay. Hopefully this is just something else that you can see what you can do having little to no equipment. And hopefully you can go ahead and utilize this information to make better training decisions in terms of exercise selection, intensities, etc., for whatever that you would need to do to continue to enhance the improvements, the velocity, the sprinting ability of your athletes. If you have any questions, shoot me a message, let me know.